This is TWiT.
There is some very good IoT news. As I mentioned at the top of the show, a new U.S. Senate bill has been proposed which will set security standards for internet-connected smart devices and will use the U.S. government's buying power as its enforcement side. A pair of well-known U.S. senators, one from each political party, because this is not a partisan issue, Virginia's Democratic Senator Mark Warner and Colorado's Republican Senator Cory Gardner, have introduced yet last week a new bill titled the Internet of Things Cybersecurity Improvement Act of 2017. So, and they did some homework. I think they had help with, I want to say Harvard. I don't think I wrote it down, but they did get some knowledgeable input. It's very clear. I read the legislation as a 20-page document. For example, it forbids any interconnected device purchased by the U.S. government from having hard-coded, unchangeable usernames and passwords in those devices. The legislation also requires vendors to ensure that their devices are patchable and at the time they are purchased are free from already known vulnerabilities. Firmware updates must have an effective authentication mechanism, such as a secure digital signature which is verified, to prevent unauthorized updates. The device must use only, this is what the legislation actually says. It's wonderful. The device must use only non-deprecated industry standard protocols and technologies for communications, encryption, and interconnection with other devices or peripherals. The device must be updatable. Quoting from the legislation, it writes, requires such internet-connected device software or firmware component to be updated or replaced consistent with other provisions in the contract governing the term of support in a manner that allows for any future security vulnerability or defect in any part of the software or firmware to be patched in order to fix or remove a vulnerability or defect in the software or firmware component in a properly authenticated and secure manner. And it must be repaired in timely fashion. The legislation says requires the contractor to provide a repair or replacement in a timely manner in respect to any new security vulnerability discovered through any of the NIST and other relevant security databases or from the Coordinated Disclosure Program. So, boy, this is what we need. It's not law yet, but as I said, it's difficult to see how this hits an iceberg. It sounds like something that the House would not have any problem adopting. It's a nonpartisan deal, so it really feels like there's a chance that the government is, first of all, legislators are waking up to the threat of IoT, and by placing these requirements on IoT devices, the responsible IoT vendors can easily meet these requirements. This is not onerous. This is just the way it should be done. It's only because there's been, like, as the case of the Shenzhen Neo cameras, absolute blatant irresponsibility, the abuse of technology, that this looks like, in retrospect, a huge change, but it's the huge change we need. So, hats off to Warner and Gardner for putting this together. And I mean, it's everything in there. It's what we would like to see in an initial first pass at working to improve things. And got to know that the U.S. government is a huge purchaser, and a lot of vendors would like to be able to sell to them. Again, this will require vendors do what they should have always been doing. And as a consequence, we'll see security improve. And boy, if there could be a certificate program or something so that, we consumers could know that this meets the U.S. government purchasing guidelines, and that as a consequence, it's compliant with this legislation once it gets pushed into law, that would be a good thing too. So anyway, as I said, inching forward, the title of this podcast, because this represents some progress.
One step at a time.